You guys are watching the Cowboys Report. I am Tom Downey. It's a mailbag. Your questions answered live on Monday's show as we deal with the fallout of the Commanders' disaster in the preparation of Monday Night Football against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Win or go home. First up from Austin D's. You know what? Dak greater than Rush, no question, yet we still have that conversation somehow. Dan Quinn is head coach. Sean Peyton wants too much control for the Joneses. Already to be heard again. I would say this, if you keep Dan Quinn, isn't Kellen Moore your OC again? Is that something you guys want? I'm not sure. I do think the control was an issue for Sean Payton. I think it's specifically an issue for Steven and or Will McClay, because McClay wants to be involved as he should be there. Are you ready to be heard again? By the time kickoff comes, yes. Right this moment, maybe not yet. From Bam Bam, is it realistic to believe that we are one and if we are one and done, McCarthy is done? I think it kind of has to be, right? Like, if you play like you have in your bad losses, or any of your losses the last calendar year, you choked against the Niners, you were bad against Tampa, you blew games against Jacksonville and against Green Bay, you lost with the backcourt against Philly, that happens, and you played like shit against the Commanders. If you have one of those style losses again, yeah, I kind of do think you got to move on from Mike. I'm not saying he's a bad head coach. He's not. He's actually very good, I think. He's done a great job this year, but we know what the expectations are for this team. Yeah, the front office didn't really support him. They made the passing offense actively worse. So we'll have to see on that front, but I think if you go one and done, you can't just roll it back again like you did last year. You'd be running it back for 2 straight years. That doesn't make any sense. DMX99. Pay Diggs and Lamb now. So they are eligible now to sign extensions, both players, part of that draft class. They're going to be expensive, which is a good problem to have. Now, we are first Stephen Jones end-of-season press conference away from saying, well, we got that Micah deal, and talking about the pie again, because I know he's going to do it. Both these guys are going to be expensive, as they should be. Highest-paid corners right now in the NFL, you're hovering around $20 million. Are there corners on this list you take over Diggs? Hell yeah, there are. You might even take all 5 over them, although Denzel Ward wasn't very good. But that's how the market goes. The most recent guy is the most expensive guy. Now, maybe you get Diggs under that amount, under $21 million, but the interceptions are down because no one is throwing at him because cornerback 2 is a mess. CeeDee Lamb has emerged as a legitimate wide receiver 1, so at minimum, I think you're looking $20 million, and frankly, I think you're looking around the $25 million price tag. A.J. Brown and CeeDee Lamb are both the number 1 receivers on their NFC East teams with their non-first-round pick quarterbacks. They both have had really good years. I would be happy to pay $25 million for Lamb and $20 million a year for Diggs because they're worth it. That's what the cost is. Got to accept it. Now, here's the question for you. Who do you pay first? CD for CeeDee Lamb or TD for Trevon Diggs? It's the pinned comment on today's video. So if the ad break comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. I'm paying Diggs first. Not because I think he's better than Lamb. I think I'd actually probably prefer Lamb if I had to pick one on the roster. But timing matters here. Diggs was a second-round pick. There is no fifth-year option like there is for CeeDee Lamb. The sooner you pay him, the more money you'll save in the long run. Have the Cowboys learned that lesson? We'll see. $10 for that's one shot here for Kyle Donovan. Cowboys haven't been the same since that game against Jacksonville. We in the playoffs. Duval knock Brady out. Kyle's our Jags fan here at Chat Sports. Thanks for the super chat, Kyle. Yeah, I mean, they've had issues at multiple different positions since then. Cornerback 2, offensive line, ground game. Quarterback has had a rough game, especially against the Commanders. Eek. We know what they can be. They got to get it figured out. Thank you, Kyle. From Vince, are you rooting for the Vikings or the Giants if the Niners eliminate the Seahawks on Saturday? I'm going upsets. It's highly unlikely, but the ideal outcome for Dallas is, regardless of who they end up playing, it's the Niners eliminate the Seahawks. So I'll come back to this and answer it the way you asked it. My first thought is I want all upsets. I would like the 7 to beat the 2, So the 7 plays the 1. I want the 6 to beat the 3. That's the Giants. So they play the 2 and the Niners. And then the Cowboys get to host the Giants. That's the ideal outcome, right? Is that the 3 wild card teams win and Dallas gets to host a home playoff game. Now, if the Niners beat the Seahawks, are you cheering then, what was the question, for the Vikings or the Giants? So in that case, do you want to go play Philadelphia or do you want to go play San Francisco? You know what? They're both really good teams. I'm not really cheering for either at that point. It is what it is. You got to play one of the 2 best teams in the NFC. That's how it goes. Chris Snow, if corner 2 is in shambles, or since corner 2 is in shambles, who do we take in the draft? If Porter and Ringo don't fall, is Witherspoon out of Illinois? It's Devin Witherspoon. You've seen his name in a lot of mock drafts of the Cowboys. Kind of fits Dan Quinn's MO. Size, like actual thickness and weight, is a question mark. Speed is too. I think he's a good late round 1 option. I think Alfredo Rodriguez here, funny timing, has a great name too. Christian Gonzalez, cornerback from Oregon. I think he, Ringo, Porter, and then maybe Cam Smith from South Carolina, all in that top cornerback conversation. Maybe one is there. Because, best case, you're picking in the mid-20s, or I think worst case, whatever route you want to go there. We'll see if one's there, but you got to figure out corner 2. It's a mess, man. Now, today's Cowboys Report is brought to you by BetUS. You can bet on draft stuff, by the way, once we get closer. Chatsports.com/bet. Promo code Cowboys125 is 125% deposit bonus when you put down at least $100. Maybe throw 5 on the Cowboys from the Super Bowl. Or not, if we have issues from that standpoint, because we've all got the scar tissue. Chiefs, Bills, Eagles, and Niners are your 4 betting favorites. Then the Bengals, they've gotten hot. And the Cowboys plus 1,200 as well. Throw $5 down on the Super Bowl or even just the Cowboys-Bucks playoff game. Do it with BetUS. Chatsports.com/bet. Promo code Cowboys125 gets you a 125% deposit bonus at chatsports.com/bet. Jeremy Chugs' burner. If Dak can't perform Monday, I think it's more than fair to evaluate other options as the future of the franchise. I have issues with that. I think it's a little bit different when it's the head coach because, in theory, it's the entire team plays bad again. I'm fine if your plan is like, we don't want to extend Dak and we want to give him a year with, in theory, a new head coach. I'm actually fine with that path. But in terms of, dump him, I have a very tough time saying I want to dump the quarterback of the team averaging 30 points a game when he's been healthy. Even with the flaws that we know he has and the mistakes that he makes, I just have a very tough time doing that because who am I going to get that's better? There's not I just don't see that happening. So if you're like, I don't want to pay him big money again, okay, we're going to give him another year. That's fine. But unless he just throws 3 pick sixes that are all clearly his fault, I have a very tough time going, yeah, you know what, he's actually not the top 10 quarterback we've seen when healthy the past 3 years. I just can't get there. Ignatius Pennyfeather the Ninth. What an elite username. What's most likely in round 1? Running back, corner, or receiver? I want to say corner. I think those are all valid areas. Offensive line can still be a focal point for you too. I'd go corner. I don't like what the options are on this roster. Anthony Brown's a free agent coming off the injury. Kelvin Joseph looks like a bust. And Deshaun Wright has not done much of anything. Trayvon Mullen, you're throwing darts. It's really tough. Hit that subscribe button so the Cowboys will win. When you guys sub, the Cowboys are more likely to win. YouTube.com/@CowboysTV. It's backed by the science. Hit that sub button for me right now. Andrew Summers. Terrance Steele is going to end up making Jack Conklin money. That's 4 years, $16 million. Let me check where that rates among highest paid right tackles in the NFL. I don't disagree, by the way. I want to see what the exact numbers are so I sound smart for once. Look, right tackle, you miss Terence Steele. I think you miss Terence Steele in a pretty big way. $15 million right now is just outside top 5 right tackle money behind Ryan Ramczyk, Brian O'Neill, Lane Johnson, Brandon Smith, Taylor Motton. Maybe coming off the injury, you can get him for a discount like you did Michael Gallup, and hopefully it ends up being a better result. There's a big gap. It's $17 million for number 5 tackle Taylor Motton, $15 for Jack Conklin, $11 for Rob Havenstein. So there's big gaps, and then down to 9.75 for Chuck Okorafor, who's not that good for the Steelers. I think you're in about the right ballpark there. You miss Terence Steele. I honestly think his absence only helped his value because you miss him in the ground game in a pretty big way. Andy Dorado, is Xavier Rhodes going to play in the playoffs? At this point, you can't rule out anything because you're bad at corner, but I would be surprised. I really would be. He's a veteran with experience, and maybe that helps you, but he wasn't playing for the Bills. He played 2 games for them. He wasn't good in Indy in 2021. He was good in 2020, and he was bad in 2019. So you got 3 years of not great play. My expectations are low. I am also of the let's see what happens to an extent, which is really bad to be saying in the wild card round of the playoffs. Not great. So what is your confidence level then in the secondary? Scale it from 1 to 10. You got to give it at least a 1 because of Diggs and the safeties, I guess. 1 on the low end, 10 on the high end. Cowboys fan 11, what is your prediction for Tony Pollard and Zeke this off season? Who's staying, who's going, who's not going to be there, etc. I'm looking at the numbers here for the season for Tony Pollard or for the entire team on the ground. It's not been very good as of late. Tony Pollard's been way more explosive. He's kind of cooled off a little bit here. Ezekiel Elliott is averaging 3.8 yards per carry, which, to put it in perspective, is a career worst. Ezekiel Elliott is having his worst season ever. I cannot bring him back on the current contract. Now, if you want to cut him and try to bring him back cheap or a restructure like you did for Tank Lawrence in the cheap, sure. I don't see how you bring back Zeke on his deal. It's a bad contract. That's your bad contract on this roster right now, even though you could have found more money. You can find more money again this offseason. I'm not bringing him back. It's a bad deal. He's just not good anymore. Or at least not the Zeke we all know and love, and he was averaging 4.5, 4.7, 5.1 yards per carry. He's not prime Zeke. He's just not. I can't bring him back on his contract. There just doesn't make any sense there. Pollard, see what the money looks like. I think I'd rather franchise Pollard than Schultz, but you got into issue by paying him back big money with Elliott. You're going to make the same mistake? Are you going to draft one early? Can you get one cheap in free agency? Depends on what you do with Pollard, because I don't think Zeke's back on his current deal. How can he be? Dash XL, Dan Quinn got an interview request with the Broncos. You think he will leave? Maybe. Does he like Russell Wilson? If so, he might go. He thought he was going to get this job, that Denver job last year. He thought that. His camp thought that. Didn't happen. That's the job I'd say would worry me a little bit there. Alex Tang, give me some hope the Cowboys may run this year, please. You're better than Tampa. You are a better football team than the Buccaneers. That's why you're a road favorite in the playoffs. If you play your A game or even your B game, you're going to beat most teams. And I think you need your A game against San Francisco and Philadelphia, but we've seen the A game. You beat the number 3 seeded Vikings by 37, or whatever the exact score was, 40-3, I think. You play your A game, you can do it. You can. But we don't trust them, do we? Because QB changes, the coach changed, the offensive line, the receivers, the defense changed schemes, changed personnel, changed coaches, and the end result is disappointment over and over. So do you trust this team? Y for yes, N for no in the comment section. That is it for our mailbag. If your questions were not answered, please feel free to DM me on Twitter at whatgoingdowney. My DMs are open. So slide on in and let me know what you're thinking or if whatever therapy session you need for the Dallas Cowboys.